The Battle of Kiev, a grim testament to the sheer scale of destruction in autumn 1941. 82 years ago, the Wehrmacht began its assault on Kiev, marking a pivotal campaign in World War II. Hitler, breaking his pact with Stalin, unleashed Operation Barbarossa. The initial German offensive was breathtaking in speed and ferocity. The Red Army, caught off guard, reeled under the onslaught. The Wehrmacht, fresh from its lightning conquests in Poland and France, approached the Eastern Front with a confidence bordering on hubris. Hitler and his generals saw the Red Army as an inferior force, ripe for collapse under the weight of a decisive German offensive. The plan for Kiev was audacious, even by the standards of blitzkrieg. Rather than a direct assault, which would have been met by the full force of Soviet defenses, the Germans opted for a strategy of encirclement. Two massive pincer movements, spearheaded by armored spearheads, would race eastward, one to the north and the other to the south of the city. Their objective, to link up far behind the Soviet lines, trapping the defenders in a colossal cauldron. The success of this plan hinged on several factors: the continued speed and mobility of the German panzer divisions, the Luftwaffe's ability to maintain air superiority, and, crucially, the Red Army's inability to react in time to counter the German maneuvers. As history would soon reveal, the Germans had judged their enemy all too well. By mid-September 1941, the trap was sprung. The German pincers met at the town of Lochwitza, east of Kiev, effectively sealing the fate of the Soviet armies caught within the encirclement. What followed was a chaotic and desperate struggle for survival. Soviet soldiers, facing overwhelming German firepower and dwindling supplies, fought with tenacity and courage. However, their sacrifices were often in vain, their heroism ultimately unable to overcome the grim realities of the battlefield. The Luftwaffe, unchallenged in the skies above, rained down destruction upon the trapped Soviet forces, turning the once proud city of Kiev into a smoldering ruin. Amidst the chaos, individual acts of defiance and desperation played out on a grand scale. Soviet commanders, cut off from communication with Moscow, desperately tried to rally their troops and break out of the encirclement. Small groups of soldiers, separated from their units, resorted to guerrilla tactics, hoping to harass the enemy and perhaps slip through the tightening German lines. Section 4, a catastrophe for the Red Army, staggering losses. By the time the Battle of Kiev ended on September 26, 1941, the outcome was undeniable, a German victory of staggering proportions. Soviet losses were nothing short of catastrophic. Over 600,000 Red Army soldiers were killed or captured, along with the destruction of thousands of tanks, artillery pieces, and aircraft. The scale of the defeat sent shockwaves through the Soviet high command. Stalin himself was said to have been stunned by the news, refusing at first to believe the reports of such a colossal military disaster. The road to Moscow, the heart of the Soviet Union, now lay open to the seemingly invincible Wehrmacht. The capture of Kiev, however, came at a cost for the Germans as well. The battle had taken longer than anticipated, and the Wehrmacht had suffered significant casualties of its own. More importantly, the victory at Kiev had delayed the German advance on Moscow, a delay that would prove to be crucial as the bitter Russian winter set in. Section 5. The Price of Victory, German Strategic Missteps. The Battle of Kiev, while an undeniable tactical triumph for the Germans, also exposed what would become a recurring theme in the Eastern Front: the Wehrmacht's inability to translate tactical victories into strategic gains. The decision to commit so many resources to the encirclement of Kiev, while strategically sound on paper, had unintended consequences. The delay in the German advance on Moscow allowed the Red Army precious time to regroup, reinforce its defenses, and prepare for the coming onslaught. Furthermore, the victory at Kiev bred a dangerous sense of overconfidence within the German high command. The ease with which they had crushed the Red Army at Kiev fueled the belief that the Soviet Union was on the verge of collapse, a fatal miscalculation that would come back to haunt them in the months and years to come. Section 6. Echoes of Kiev, a harbinger of things to come. The Battle of Kiev stands as a chilling testament to the brutal realities of the Eastern Front. It was a battle fought on an unimaginable scale, characterized by its ferocity and staggering losses. For the Germans, Kiev represented the high water mark of their advance, a victory that sowed the seeds of their eventual defeat. The delay caused by the encirclement proved costly. For the Soviets, Kiev was a catastrophe. Yet from the ashes of defeat, a new resolve emerged. The Red Army, bloodied but unbroken, would fight on. The road to Berlin would be long and arduous, but the spirit of resistance would ultimately prevail.